They always told you to be kind, to be generous, to help others, to smile even when you're hurting, to be the bigger person, to forgive, to give more than you take. And so you did. You learned to say yes even when you wanted to say no. You gave your time, your energy, your heart, again and again. You listened. You showed up. You cared. But somewhere along the way, being kind stopped feeling good. It started to feel heavy, exhausting, unfair. You found yourself drained after conversations, anxious before meeting people, resentful of the people you once loved helping. And you started asking yourself, why does doing the right thing feel so wrong? Why does being a good person hurt so much? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Kindness is beautiful, but being too kind, without boundaries, without self-respect, without awareness, can quietly destroy your peace of mind. It can wreck your relationships, hollow your identity, and leave you wondering where you went in the process of being everything for everyone else. Have you ever agreed to something you didn't want to do just to avoid making someone upset? Have you ever stayed quiet when you were clearly being mistreated, just to keep the peace? Have you ever helped someone who never thanked you, and felt guilty for even noticing? If so, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for feeling the way you do. Being too kind isn't just a personality quirk. It's a learned behavior. It's what happens when we're raised to put others above ourselves, no matter the cost. It's reinforced by family, by society, even by culture. We're praised for being selfless. We're called good people when we put ourselves last. But behind that praise is a quiet truth that no one talks about. That kind people are often the most burnt out, the most overwhelmed, the most silently suffering. Psychologists have a name for this: pathological altruism. It's when your desire to help others comes at the expense of your own well-being. When saying yes becomes automatic. When guilt drives your kindness more than love does. Studies have shown that people who rate high in agreeableness, those who are friendly, empathetic, and cooperative, are also more likely to experience chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, and low self-worth. Not because they are weak, but because they often lack one thing: boundaries. Let me tell you a quick story. Sarah was the dependable one. The one everyone texted when they needed advice, a ride, a shoulder to cry on. She never said no. She always smiled. She always picked up the phone, even at 2 a.m. People loved her for it. But no one ever asked her how she was doing. No one noticed when she started skipping meals, losing sleep, crying in silence. Until one day, she just disappeared. Not because she hated anyone, but because she had nothing left to give. This video isn't about turning you into a cold person. It's not about becoming selfish. It's about reclaiming balance. About recognizing that your kindness should not come at the cost of your sanity. You deserve to be kind to yourself too. Today, we're diving into 8 surprising downsides of being too kind. Some may sound familiar. Some may shock you. But all of them are real, and they might explain why you're feeling the way you are. So as we go through them, I want you to keep one question in the back of your mind. When was the last time you put your own needs first and felt okay about it? When did you last say no without apologizing? When did you last choose yourself? Let's take off the mask and talk about what happens when kindness goes too far. Because it's time to be kind, without losing yourself. So now you're here, watching this. Maybe part of you is wondering if it's okay to question kindness. To ask whether all this giving, all this smiling, all this constant worrying about others, is really good for you. Let me tell you, it's not only okay. It's necessary. Because kindness isn't supposed to be a weight that breaks you. It's not supposed to feel like emotional labor. It's not supposed to be a cage you build for yourself, decorated with praise from people who love how easy you make their lives. You were taught to be kind, but were you ever taught how to protect yourself while being kind? How to say no without guilt? How to care without sacrificing your own well-being? Probably not. Most of us weren't. We learned, over time, to equate love with self-abandonment. To believe that if someone's upset with us, we must have done something wrong. To think that the only way to keep relationships is to make ourselves smaller in them. To disappear, just a little bit, every time someone else needed more. But here's the truth no one told you. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have needs, to have limits, to have off days. Being a kind person doesn't mean being a perfect person. It doesn't mean you owe people access to your time, your energy, or your heart just because they ask nicely. And it definitely doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Now, this isn't easy to hear if your whole identity has been built around being the nice one. The fixer. The supporter. The peacekeeper. You've probably been told your kindness is your best quality. That the world needs more people like you. And sure, it does. But not at your expense. Because if you're always giving, without rest, without limits, without reciprocation, eventually, you're going to break. And when you do, the very people who leaned on you, some will vanish, some will get angry, and some will blame you for no longer being the person they expected you to be. You'll realize then that not everyone deserved your kindness in the first place. Some just took it because it was free, and they never thought about the cost to you. You may have felt that. You may be feeling it now. Like you're tired, all the time. Like there's never enough of you to go around. Like the harder you try to be good, the more invisible you feel. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're just running on empty, because you've been giving without receiving, helping without resting, loving without limits. That's why this conversation matters. Because kindness is not the problem. The imbalance is. The belief that you have to earn love by being useful. The fear that if you stop giving, you'll stop mattering. This video isn't going to tell you to stop caring. It's going to show you how to care with awareness. How to give with intention. How to be kind without being consumed. We're going to walk through 8 hidden consequences of being too kind. Not to shame you, not to scare you, but to wake you up. To help you see the patterns, the quiet damages, the signs of emotional erosion that we often miss because they hide behind compliments and thank yous. Some of what you hear may hit close to home. Some of it may feel like your diary being read out loud. That's okay. That means it's working. That means you're ready to break free from the cycle. To unlearn what doesn't serve you anymore. To redefine kindness not as self-sacrifice, but as shared humanity. So take a breath. This is a safe space. There's no shame in being kind, only in letting kindness become your prison. Let's get into it. 1. People will take advantage of you. Let's start with the most obvious, yet most ignored consequence of being too kind. People will take advantage of you. Not might. Not maybe. They will if you let them. And many of them won't even realize they're doing it. Because here's what happens when you're consistently kind, generous, and accommodating. People begin to expect it. They stop seeing it as a gift and start seeing it as a given. You open the door once, and suddenly, you're the doorman. You stay late at work one time, and now you're the go-to person for just a few more things. You help someone through a hard time, and before you know it, you've become their unpaid therapist. And it doesn't always come from malicious intent. Some people genuinely appreciate you. But appreciation without respect eventually turns into entitlement. They begin to assume you'll say yes. They stop asking if you're okay. They stop noticing when you're overwhelmed. Why? Because you've trained them, without meaning to, that your needs come last. That you'll bend, stretch, and shrink to fit into their lives, no matter the cost to your own. And once someone learns that about you, they may never stop taking. Not because they're evil, but because most people will accept help if it's offered, especially when there's no resistance. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you lent your time, your money, your emotional energy to someone, and felt drained afterward? Did they force you? Probably not. But they also didn't stop to ask if you had it to give. Because somewhere along the way, your kindness turned into currency. And you kept spending, even when your emotional bank account was empty. This kind of exploitation can be subtle. It's not always loud or obvious. It looks like, "You're the only one I can count on. You're so much better at this than me. I just knew you'd understand." At first, it feels nice, like you're needed, but over time, it becomes a pattern. A silent expectation that you'll always be there, even when you're falling apart. And the worst part? When you finally set a boundary, when you say, "I can't," or "I need a break." Some of these people will react with confusion, guilt-tripping, or even anger. Because you broke the unspoken deal. The one where you give, and they take. You might hear, "You've changed. I guess I can't count on you anymore." Wow, that's not like you. But here's the truth. You didn't change. You just finally stopped allowing yourself to be used. Because the people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always be the most upset when you start creating them. It hurts, doesn't it? To realize that someone you cared for didn't really care about you just the way you made their life easier. To realize you were giving from a place of love, and they were receiving from a place of convenience. But this is your turning point. This is where you start seeing clearly. Your kindness is not a weakness, but your inability to say no, your fear of disappointing others, that's what opens the door to being used. And until you learn to close that door, even just a little, people will keep walking through it like they own the place. So how do you stop it? It starts with awareness. Start paying attention to who drains you, who only calls when they need something, who disappears when you need support. Then, start practicing discomfort. Because saying no will feel awful at first. You'll feel guilty, selfish, even. But over time, you'll realize something powerful. The people who love you will adjust. And the people who don't were never really loving you in the first place. They were loving the version of you who never asked for anything, who always gave, no matter what. And that version? She's tired. He's tired. You're tired. It's time to make space for the version of you who gives because you want to, not because you're afraid not to. Who helps others because it brings you joy, not because you feel responsible for everyone's happiness. Who is kind, but not naive. Generous, but not self-destructive. Loving, but not willing to be used. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means learning where the line is, and having the courage to protect it. 2. You lose your own identity. When you're constantly focused on pleasing others, on keeping the peace, on being the one everyone depends on, you start to forget who you are. Little by little, you lose your own identity. It doesn't happen all at once. You don't just wake up one day and think, "I don't know who I am anymore." It's slower than that. Quieter. More subtle. Like erosion. You stop voicing your opinions because you don't want to upset anyone. You stop expressing your preferences because you're used to just going with the flow. You don't even ask yourself what you want anymore because you're too used to asking what everyone else needs first. Eventually, your life becomes a performance. One where you shapeshift depending on who you're with. With your family, you're the reliable one. At work, you're the dependable one. With friends, you're the easygoing one. But who are you when no one else is around? For people who are too kind, this is one of the most painful realizations. Because we've been trained, sometimes from childhood, to make other people comfortable. To smooth things over. To earn approval. And we do it so well, we forget we were ever anything else. Here's what that looks like in real life. You're asked where you want to go eat. You say, "I'm good with anything." You're asked how you feel about something, and you say, "It's fine." You're given an opportunity to speak your truth, and instead you smile and nod. It seems harmless. But over time, this adds up. You start disconnecting from your own opinions, your own passions, your own voice. Because you've been focused on being liked, instead of being real. And it goes deeper than just surface-level choices. Sometimes, people who are overly kind start shaping their entire lives around the expectations of others. You take a job your parents approve of even if it doesn't fulfill you. You stay in relationships where your needs aren't met, because you don't want to hurt someone. You keep showing up for people who wouldn't show up for you because it feels too uncomfortable to stop. Before you know it, you're living a life that looks good on the outside. But inside, you feel disconnected, empty, like you're constantly performing, and never just being. And the scariest part? When someone asks you what you want out of life, what you really want, you don't know how to answer. Because for so long, you've been asking, what do they want from me? Instead, you begin to measure your worth by how useful you are, how easy you are to deal with, how selfless you can be. But that's not identity. That's survival. You don't exist just to make others feel comfortable. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to be everyone's emotional support system to be loved. Your identity, your real identity, is made up of your passions, your beliefs, your boundaries, your dreams. And when those things get silenced, you're not really living. You're just maintaining. So how do you reclaim yourself? Start small. Start by noticing when you're defaulting to what's easy instead of what's true. When you say I don't mind but actually, you do mind. When you say it's okay, but it isn't. Start asking yourself simple questions. What do I enjoy? What drains me? What am I doing because I want to? And what am I doing out of obligation? You might be surprised by how many parts of your life are running on autopilot. How many of your choices are based on keeping others happy? But awareness is the first step back to yourself. You were not born just to serve, to give, to please. You are not here to play a supporting role in someone else's life. You are allowed to take up space, to have opinions, to choose differently. Because when your kindness becomes your mask, you lose the most important relationship of all, the one with yourself. There's something strange that starts happening when you're too kind. You begin to notice a pattern in your relationships, friendships, family, even dating. You start attracting people who, at first, seem drawn to your warmth, your empathy, your willingness to listen and give and support. But over time, you realize something unsettling. They're not really interested in you. They're interested in what you do for them. Because the truth is, when you're constantly giving, constantly accommodating, constantly going out of your way to make others feel good, you create a magnet for the kind of people who take advantage of that. And these people, they come in all forms. Some are emotionally needy. Some are manipulative. Some are flat out toxic. But they all share one thing in common. They see your kindness as an opportunity, not a connection. They don't respect your boundaries, because you've never shown them any. They don't check in on you, because they've gotten used to you always checking in on them. They don't give back, because you've taught them that giving is your job and receiving is theirs. And here's where it gets even harder to admit. Part of you likes that role, because being the helpful one gives you a sense of value. You feel important, needed, special. But over time, you start to notice the imbalance. You're always the one reaching out first. You're always the one making plans, apologizing, adjusting, giving second chances. They disappear when you're struggling. They only show up when it's convenient. They praise your kindness, but never protect your heart. And sometimes, it's worse than that. You start attracting people who are emotionally unavailable, narcissistic, or even abusive. Why? Because people like that look for people like you. They look for the ones who won't say no, who will always give them the benefit of the doubt, who will keep showing up even when they don't deserve it. It's not your fault, but it is your pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is why so many kind-hearted people end up in one-sided relationships. Because they confuse kindness with compatibility. They think, if I'm good to them, they'll eventually be good to me. But relationships don't work like karma. You don't get love just because you give love. You get love when you choose people who know how to reciprocate it. So how do you stop attracting the wrong people? It starts with learning to filter. Just like you wouldn't hand your house keys to a stranger, you shouldn't hand your energy to everyone who smiles at you. Start asking harder questions. Do they respect my time? Do they make space for my needs? Do they only show up when it's easy? The wrong people are allergic to boundaries. They'll guilt trip you when you set one. They'll accuse you of being selfish or cold. They'll try to make you feel bad for finally putting yourself first. Let them. Because the people you lose when you start respecting yourself are the exact people you were never meant to keep. And the right ones? The ones who deserve your kindness? They'll love the version of you who knows her worth. They won't need you to shrink. They won't get angry when you say no. They won't disappear when you stop making it easy. Being kind isn't about giving everyone access. It's about knowing who's worthy of what you offer, and having the courage to stop giving to those who aren't. Because your kindness is precious, and it should never be the reason you're surrounded by people who only know how to take. For you build resentment in silence. There's a quiet weight that comes with being too kind. It doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in slowly, over weeks, months, years. You might not even realize it at first, because on the surface, everything seems fine. You're helping. You're giving. You're saying yes, even when it's inconvenient. You're making space for others, even when you're exhausted. And everyone thinks you're happy, because you smile. You reassure. You never complain. But under the surface, something starts to shift. A quiet frustration. A subtle bitterness. A voice inside you whispering, "Why does no one ever ask about me?" That, right there, is resentment. And it's one of the most dangerous things a kind person can carry. Because resentment doesn't explode. It builds. Slowly. Silently. You push it down every time someone takes you for granted. Every time someone crosses a line and you let it slide. Every time you put someone else first and pretend you're fine with it. And maybe you are fine, at first. But over time, that pile of it's okay moments starts to grow. Until it becomes heavy, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. You start feeling irritated by people you used to care about. You feel drained just thinking about certain conversations. You catch yourself going quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're tired of saying things that don't get heard. You become resentful, not just of others, but of yourself for letting it happen. And here's the part that stings. It's not really their fault. You never told them you were overwhelmed. You never said no. You never asked for anything different. You trained them to think you were okay with the dynamic, because on the outside, you made it look effortless. But the truth is, even kindness has a limit. Even you, strong, generous, dependable you, have a breaking point. And if you never speak up, you'll start leaking your resentment in other ways. Passive-aggressive comments. Emotional withdrawal. Sudden burnout. Moments where you snap at someone over something small. Not because of that thing, but because of everything you've swallowed before it. So how do you stop the cycle? You learn to speak before you snap. You practice honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. You say things like, "I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need some time to myself. I've been giving a lot lately, and I need space to recharge." That might sound scary, because if you're not used to advocating for yourself, it feels like conflict. But setting boundaries is not conflict, it's clarity. It's telling people how to love you better. It's telling yourself that your needs matter, too. And if someone reacts badly to your boundaries, that's data. That tells you everything you need to know about the relationship. The people who love you will adjust. The ones who only loved the version of you that never pushed back, let them go. Because resentment is not a sign that you're broken. It's a signal. It's your spirit telling you, "I've been quiet for too long." And the longer you ignore it, the more it grows. Until eventually, it consumes your kindness, poisons your relationships, and turns you into someone even you don't recognize. But it doesn't have to get there. You can stop the build-up. You can release the weight. You can choose to express rather than suppress. Because real kindness, it doesn't come from sacrificing yourself. It comes from being real with others and with yourself. 5. You burn out emotionally. There's something people don't tell you about being the strong one, the kind one, the dependable one, the one who's always there. Eventually, you burn out. Not the kind of burnout that comes from working long hours or missing sleep, though that can be part of it. This kind is deeper, quieter. It sneaks up on you while you're still smiling, while you're still nodding and saying of course, even though you're exhausted inside. It's emotional burnout. A kind of inner fatigue that builds over time when you keep giving more than you get. When you're constantly pouring from a cup that never gets refilled. And when you're kind to a fault, this happens more often than you realize. Because here's the reality. You can only absorb so much of other people's stress, pain, expectations, and chaos before it begins to hollow you out. At first, you think you can handle it. You pride yourself on being emotionally resilient. You take on everyone's burdens and wear your selflessness like a badge of honor. But eventually, you start to notice the cracks. You're not sleeping well. Your mind is always racing. You feel anxious in spaces that used to bring you peace. You begin dreading texts, calls, plans because everything feels like one more thing to manage. And worst of all, you start to feel numb. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you've cared too much for too long without rest. This is what emotional burnout looks like in kind people. You don't explode. You shut down. You keep showing up, but something inside you stops connecting. You go on autopilot. People might not even notice. Because you're still functioning. You're still doing the right things, saying the right words. But deep down, you feel empty. Like you've become a version of yourself that exists for others, but no longer feels alive inside. And here's the heartbreaking part. When you reach that level of burnout, the world doesn't pause. People keep expecting. Keep asking, keep needing, because they've gotten used to you never needing anything back. That's when the resentment kicks in. That's when the exhaustion turns into bitterness. That's when even small requests feel unbearable, and you begin fantasizing about disappearing, just so you can breathe. If you've ever reached this point, you know how hard it is to admit it out loud. You don't want to seem dramatic. You don't want to let anyone down. So you suffer in silence, until silence becomes your only language. But it doesn't have to be this way. Burnout isn't a weakness. It's a message. A red flag from your nervous system saying, this pace is not sustainable. A reminder that even kindness needs boundaries. Because your emotional energy is not infinite. It needs time to recover. It needs space. It needs people who pour back into you. Not just those who constantly take. So how do you recover from emotional burnout? Start with rest. Not just physical rest, but emotional rest. Time where you don't have to be on. Time where no one is asking you to fix, support, or solve anything. Next, start protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. That means saying no. That means canceling plans when you're overwhelmed. That means stepping back from relationships that only drain. It also means finally being honest with yourself and with others. Say things like, I'm not okay right now. I need space. I've been giving too much, and I need time to refill. You don't owe everyone access to you just because you're capable. You don't have to earn your worth through emotional labor. The people who truly care about you won't be shocked when you set boundaries. They'll respect them, because they'll want you whole, not hollowed out from always putting yourself last. Burnout isn't the end. It's the invitation to begin again, to return to yourself, to reclaim your time, your energy, your peace. And that version of you, the one who's still kind, but no longer depleted, that's the one who will finally feel free. 6. You struggle to accept help. It's a strange thing. How the people who give the most often struggle the most to receive. The people who show up for everyone else have the hardest time letting someone show up for them. If you're someone who's deeply kind, supportive, emotionally available, you probably know what this feels like. Someone offers you help, and your instinct is to say, "No, I'm good." even when you're not, even when you're exhausted, even when you're breaking inside. You've built your identity around being the one who fixes, the one who listens, the one who holds everything together. And somewhere along the way, you started to believe that receiving help makes you weak, or needy, or a burden. So when someone reaches out with support, you smile, thank them, and politely decline, because it feels safer to suffer silently than to let someone see you struggle. But here's the paradox. You give so freely to others. You see their pain, their messiness, their chaos, and you never judge it. You offer comfort, understanding, compassion. So why is it so hard to believe that someone could do the same for you? It's because deep down, you've trained yourself to believe that your role is to give, not to need. You feel guilty resting. You feel selfish asking. You feel exposed admitting that you're not okay. But you are human, and no amount of kindness will ever change that. Even the strongest people break. Even the healers need healing. Even you, yes, you deserve care, tenderness, support. And here's the truth. Pushing people away when they try to help doesn't make you strong. It makes you lonely. It builds a wall that keeps everyone else out, but also keeps you trapped inside. Eventually, the weight gets too heavy to carry alone. But by then, you've spent so long pretending you're fine. No one even knows you're drowning. And the worst part? You start to resent the very people you refuse to let in. You think, why doesn't anyone notice that I'm struggling? But how could they, when your mask is still smiling? This is the hidden cost of excessive kindness. You become so focused on giving that you forget how to receive. So how do you change that? It starts with a simple, terrifying step. Let someone in. Let someone help. Not because you're weak. Not because you're incapable. But because you're worthy of care, too. Start small. Let a friend bring you food when you're overwhelmed. Let someone listen without interrupting them to say you're fine. Let go of the need to always have it all together. Accepting help is not a failure. It's a form of intimacy. It's saying, I trust you with my truth. And that kind of vulnerability, that's what creates real connection. You don't have to prove your strength by suffering in silence. You don't have to earn your place in the world by how much you can endure. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to lean on others. You are allowed to be held. Because true kindness isn't just about what you give. It's also about what you're willing to receive with an open heart. 7. You become a people pleaser instead of a truth teller. When you're overly kind, you often start prioritizing comfort over truth. Not just other people's comfort, but your own fear of conflict, disappointment, or disapproval. So you say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you're frustrated. You stay quiet when something bothers you. And little by little, you stop being honest, not just with others, but with yourself. You become a people pleaser because it feels safer, easier, more peaceful. But it's not peace, it's silence. And it comes at the cost of your authenticity. Eventually, you lose your voice. You forget what you want, what you believe, what you need. The more you avoid uncomfortable truths to make others feel better, the more disconnected you become from them and from yourself. Real kindness isn't about always being agreeable. It's about having the courage to be honest with love, to speak your truth even when it's hard, to stop betraying yourself just to keep the peace. Because being liked isn't the same as being respected. And respect starts with telling the truth. 8. You lose yourself trying to be everything to everyone. At first, it seems harmless. You're just being helpful, supportive, accommodating. But slowly, you stop recognizing yourself. You become who they need. The patient daughter, the loyal friend, the partner who never complains, the co-worker who always says yes. Piece by piece, you shapeshift, until your own needs, dreams, and desires feel like distant echoes. You forget what lights you up, what matters to you, Because all your energy is spent keeping others comfortable, happy, stable. And the scariest part? Most people don't even notice. Because you made it look easy. You became so good at being what everyone needed. You never gave them a chance to meet the real you. Eventually, you look in the mirror and realize you don't know who you are anymore. Just a tired version of someone who used to have boundaries, used to have opinions, used to have a self. But here's the truth. You can't be everything to everyone without being nothing to yourself. Kindness should never cost you your identity. Your soul is not a service. Your worth isn't in how much you do for others. It's in who you are when no one is asking anything from you. It's time to come back to that person. To choose you. Not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. Because the world doesn't need you to be everything. It just needs you to be real. So maybe kindness isn't the enemy, but unchecked, unbalanced, unprotected kindness. That can slowly ruin your life in ways you never see coming. Because it doesn't hurt all at once. It's subtle. It's quiet. It looks like selflessness until it becomes self-erasure. You say yes too much. You stay quiet too often. You carry everyone's weight, but your own becomes unbearable. You give and give, until there's nothing left of you but a smile that's slowly falling apart. But here's the truth. You can still be kind, without being a doormat. You can still be generous, without abandoning your own needs. You can be soft, and still have a spine. Kindness is powerful, but only when it includes you, too. You are not here to please everyone. You are not here to fix everyone. You are not here to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. You are allowed to take up space, to say no, to rest, to ask for help, to be honest, to be real. Because the most powerful kind of kindness is the kind that comes from wholeness, not from depletion. Protect your peace, honor your truth, and never lose yourself trying to love the world. Kindness is not weakness, but forgetting yourself in the name of kindness is. Protect your peace, then fade into. Subscribe, like, comment, share. If this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe for more honest content.